coming up on today's episode.
Wow.
You know how people say, live with no regrets?
Yeah.
I've got one.
Okay. Taking that stuff.
And it's smoking whatever that was. By the end of that third episode with the psychologist, I went, oh yeah, definitely that kid could murder somebody.
Oh God.
I want the gritty details.
I had a colorful youth. Oh boy.
It gets extreme.
It's hard to watch at times, at least for me.
For sure.
I had to sometimes stop and walk away for a little while and oh.
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
So, Joe,
Yeah,
on
Ryan.
today's episode of Beyond the Frame, we're talking about the 2025 Netflix Limited Series Adolescence, which is all the craze and the buzz on
And it deserves it.
the internet right now.
It deserves
and
it.
Absolutely deserves it. There's a reason why these things catch fire,
Yep.
and it's because they're hitting a certain string.
Yeah, if not many.
Yeah, if not many, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we only going to have time to maybe explore one of those strings today.
Okay.
But we could talk about this movie for 6 more episodes, I'm
We
sure.
absolutely
The
could.
series, sorry.
Yeah.
The theme we're going to explore today, the one I chose, is who's responsible when a crime occurs. There will be
Okay.
spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the show, go watch it and come back and then listen to us afterwards.
Do go watch the show too.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Also, we're on YouTube if you want to see the video
Yeah.
version.
Yeah, that's true. We are.
So, Joe,
Yeah,
I want to
Ryan.
jump right into it.
Okay.
Have you ever been involved in a crime? Or have you ever known someone who has? And if so, what element or party do you think most contributed to that crime taking place?
Well, I guess I'd say yes and me.
Yes, I committed a crime and it was my fault.
That's
Okay.
right. I
All
take
right.
complete responsibility.
Okay, explore that for us, please.
Oh God!
I want the gritty details
I
here.
had a colorful youth.
A colorful youth,
If
okay?
any of my siblings are listening, they're like, "Really?
Colorful.
You did? Yeah, I did." I'm fortunate that I, never went to prison or jail or anything.
Sure.
Because I did stuff.
Right.
But I will say this: no one was ever injured.
okay.
I didn't hurt anybody.
Sure.
But when you say crime, you could define that quite technically. It's just breaking the law,
Right. There's a range here, and
Right.
I'm looking for just any in general. Like, I'm not talking about what took place
Fair
in
enough.
this, obviously.
Right.
Hopefully
right.
you don't
No,
know
I
someone,
don't.
or-
I've never been. No, I've never been a party to murder.
Right. Thank God.
No, I've not. But I think with what you're talking about, of course, I took complete responsibility. Yeah, there's no doubt about who's responsible in my particular.
But do you think it was only you?
Uh huh.
Really? Okay, so you think that nothing else had to do, because what we're going to talk about in this
Yeah.
is this show does such a good job of exploring, was the school responsible? Is society responsible? Were his parents responsible? He's a child.
Well, and we'll get into it more.
Okay.
Once we get into the episode a little bit more,
Okay.
and because I do have definite thoughts on that.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So we'll save those.
We'll bring those up a little bit later
Yeah,
then. Okay.
let's do that.
Let me
Yeah.
let me give you my
Please.
experience with.
Okay,
with
here we go. I
crime,
think there's a
okay?
story here.
So the reason I chose this question and the reason why I always choose the questions I do is because I have a very personal relationship to it.
Okay.
So this series has me digging into the depths of my past.
Okay.
And dissecting one crime in particular that I was a part of. Now, it's worth noting, as you did, due to the nature of the crime committed in adolescence, the crime that I was in was very mild.
Okay.
In comparison to this. Okay.
That's
Nobody
good to know.
was hurt. No
Good
one
to hear.
died. There was nothing like that. But,
Good. Good to hear.
So, yeah, look, Jamie murdered someone. I took part in vandalizing property. Okay.
Me too.
And looking back, it took a perfect storm for me to end up committing this crime. And let me explain that a little
Okay.
bit. So I was 14 or 15, I think. So I was young. My age was a factor. I would not do that now as a 30-year-old man. But I was young, naive, didn't know the weight of my actions and just how serious they were. I thought we were just bored one night and wanted to do something exciting. Wanted to spice things up a bit.
Oh, I
I'm a
understand.
kid,
I
It's
understand
like,
very well.
Somebody has a
yeah.
rogue idea.
Yeah.
That'll be funny. Whatever. You're not thinking about the repercussions of that and all the people who will be affected by it. The person with which I committed this crime was bad for me, and me bad for him.
Okay.
We were bad for each other. We instigated each other, and our dynamic was one that promoted this kind of behavior. I mean, we got
Okay.
into a lot of trouble together. I don't want to place all the blame and responsibility on him because I myself was that for him, and I'm sure he would say the same thing. We were just a mixture that promoted this kind of behavior. We got into a lot of debauchery. Debauchery. We got into a lot of irresponsible behavior, we'll say.
Okay.
And lastly, we were on drugs at the time. So that can kind of play a role sometimes in things. The two of us were potheads, but we then discovered...
Oh, so you'd been smoking all the weed.
No. So we discovered that there was a synthetic weed you could buy at the gas station.
What?
Yeah. So this
That sounds horrible.
What drew us to this is it didn't show up on a drug test. Which by our parents were administering to us regularly.
Really?
So,
Wow.
we smoked this synthetic
To be discussed.
marijuana. Yeah, we can
Okay.
dive into that later. One night, and thus we were in a state of mind that allowed this absurd idea, to feel, well, a little less absurd.
What the heck is in that stuff?
Whatever it was, not good for me.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Oh my God.
I'm positive of
Can't
that.
imagine. Okay. Wow.
You know how people say, live with no regrets?
Yeah.
I've got one.
Okay.
And it's-
Taking that stuff?
And it's smoking whatever that was.
I mean, well, you got it at a gas station. It had to be good quality.
Right, and it said right on the bottle, not for human consumption.
No.
Yeah, the marketing, It's kind of like now kids are doing this, it's like gas, it's like Galaxy Gas or something it's called. It's like these colorful containers and stuff, and it says on there, do not inhale. Do not. In bold, like black letters. Well, you know what people are doing with that stuff.
Kids.
So if you ever get your hands on synthetic weed, please do not.
Pass.
Learn from me.
I'm glad you
I can
told
speak
me.
from experience.
Phew. Yeah.
So, but it takes the perfect storm.
Okay.
I was not all to blame for what took place. My friend was not all to blame for what took place. Our parents were not all to... You know what I mean? It takes multiple...
village.
It takes a village. It takes multiple parties to be really involved in what's going to happen and what's going to transpire.
So if a crime took place and you have all those people responsible, who's going to be the one that... Let's say you were 18 when you did that.
Sure.
Who's the one who's going to pay the price for all those responsible parties?
Me?
How come the other people don't?
It's an interesting question that this show, which I'm glad you asked, because this show does a really good job of exploring that exact question. Okay. Sure, a crime took place. Someone is at fault. However, most times, I don't want to say all, I'm sure there are times when it's just an individual, but it takes a village. There are other factors involved that contributed to this crime taking place.
I hear you. And when you asked that question of me, and mine had to do with similar things like stealing stuff and what have you. But ultimately, that's where I just thought, because you could say there were a lot of factors that went into it. A friend of mine who was encouraging it and what have you. But ultimately, I have my own liberty. So I'm the one who made that decision.
Absolutely. And you are 100% part of that taking place.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, it doesn't exist.
That's right.
It took you.
Right.
It took the vessel
That's
to
Right.
happen. So, and Jamie, by all accounts, is the guilty party here.
That's right.
However, what the series does, which I think is so good, is it explores...
It sure does.
What might have led Jamie to doing this horrific crime.
Yep.
And let's get into it, huh? Let's talk
please.
about
Yeah.
Adolescence, shall we? That's what the people want. That's what they're here for. So, Adolescence is a 4-part miniseries about a 13-year-old boy named Jamie, played by Owen Cooper in his first leading role, by the way, who finds himself the primary suspect in the murder of a young classmate named Katie. The show explores a few different aspects of Jamie's life, such as his school, family, society, and how these aspects might have contributed to the murder taking place. So I'm throwing our format here a little bit to the wind today because it felt like I didn't want to talk about specific scenes that explored this. I wanted to talk about the specific parties.
Yeah,
I wanted to talk about who, because that's what this show does, and I want to do it justice, so it didn't feel right.
That's fair.
So I want to explore 3 different parties that were responsible for the murder. Society is the first, the parents as the second, and then Jamie himself as the third. Let's talk about the society first, huh?
Okay.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So this one is often overlooked when we consider who's responsible. No pun intended, but as a society, we don't consider that we could be playing a part. We don't consider that as a collective whole, we can be contributing to some crimes taking place, right? Wouldn't you agree? I don't think that's what people jump to first. They consider, oh, well, us as a society, we've caused that. It's usually on the back burner. But this show highlights just that, and it does it brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
So episode 2 takes us on a ride with the police officers through the school. Luke, played by Ashley Walters, and Misha, played by Faye Marseille, as they do research at Jamie's school to try and gain more information about Jamie's motive and the murder weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we watch them kind of navigate this school, and the school I could have chosen as another. We didn't have time. The school could have been a 4th.
Sure. Contributing factor.
Correct. So, but we didn't have time for that. So we're going to focus on the society here.
Okay.
So 2 scenes jumped out to me specifically in this. The scene between Luke and his son, and the one between Luke and Jamie's friend Ryan. In the scene with his son Adam, played by Amari Bacchus, he explains to his father that he has been looking at things all wrong.
That was quite a scene.
You know, he kind of pulls him into like the side room there.
Yeah.
And we talk in private, and he says, Dad, you're kind of making a fool of yourself here.
Yeah, because you're not seeing
You're not getting it.
Yeah, you don't get it.
You're not understanding.
Yeah.
And I think as we get older, it becomes harder to understand the younger generation. We're not in it anymore.
Right.
The language that they're using, it becomes harder to decipher.
Yeah.
And so they're grown adults, these 2 cops. And so they're seeing it, I don't want to say very black and white.
But they're seeing it through their eyes.
Through their eyes, correct.
At their current age.
Exactly. And to them it seems, oh, Katie and Jamie were friends.
Right, because look, they were texting.
They were texting. They were commenting each other's posts.
That's it. They were commenting on each other's posts, not texting.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it takes his son bringing him into the room and saying,
you don't
they
know
weren't
how
friends
to read
at all.
This. Yeah.
You're reading this all wrong. He says to him that the kids communicate using emojis to represent different things and basically speaking in sort of code, if you will. And that Katie has essentially been making fun of Jamie and calling him an incel.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know, incel stands for involuntary celibate. So Luke is so taken back by what his son is saying, questioning, like, why are kids even talking about this stuff? Who's worried about sex at 13?
An incel at 13. Yeah.
You'd be surprised, Luke. You'd be surprised. A lot of people talking about sex at 13. I can promise you that. His son goes on to explain to him this 80-20 rule that, 80% of women are attracted to only 20% of men. This leaves out 80% of men to potentially become incels. And as we know, spreads to Jamie, feel ugly, feel rejected, and discarded by society. So this, we can see how our actions as a society have led to someone feeling this way. If there's this 80-20 rule, so to say, let's just indulge. It exists for conversation's sake.
Okay.
If you're part of that 80% of men who are being left out, who are being rejected, it's going to make you feel a certain kind of way. You're going to feel less than. You're going to feel defeated. And that's not something people like to feel, right? So I don't know what we could have done, what that looks like. I'm not here to offer answers to those questions, right?
Those are big
I'm
questions.
dissecting the show.
Fair enough.
But through this conversation, we can see how that might have transpired and how that might have played a contributing factor
For sure.
for Jamie.
For sure. I mean, and this is where, and the cops refer to this, that, they didn't have social media, and the parents say that too. They didn't have social media growing up. So that was not a factor at all. And it's a massive factor in our society, yes, but in this particular series as well.
Oh my gosh.
It's a very integral part of facilitating what happened and the crime that Jamie committed.
Absolutely, because before you could only engage in this kind of behavior at school.
Yeah.
You saw the kids
Yeah.
at school for
Yeah.
8 hours.
And that's the
briefly
only
in
time you
hall.
communicated with them, unless you got
100%.
on the phone
Right.
and talked to them.
Right, you went home and that was it. And then
Right.
you came back tomorrow.
Right. And phone was one-on-one.
Now
wasn't
as you're
like,
walking out of the school, you're already pulling up the Twitters,
as
the
episode 2
Instagrams.
showed so well.
100%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about how the other scene comes
Sure,
into play,
please.
right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the scene between Luke and Jamie's friend Ryan, who played by Kane Davis, who has just been socked in the face by Katie's best friend.
Yeah.
And is tending to his wounds in the nurse's office. So Luke comes in to talk to Ryan, and we learn how obsessed with popularity Ryan is. He has this childlike wonder
Yeah.
talking to Luke about how he was probably popular, right? In his grade school days.
Yeah.
He's kind of looking at him. He's
Exactly.
He's like, "Oh, you're one of the 20%.
Right.
You I bet you were popular. I bet you got the girls."
And you could feel the ire coming from that kid.
Yeah.
And the cop was confused. You
Yeah,
could tell,
oh, yeah,
what is going on
He's
here?
like, "Why are you asking me about this stuff?"
Right.
But that's what kids are concerned about. That's their concern. I want to be popular. I want to be liked.
Right.
I want to be part of that 20%.
Right. Oh my
And
God.
so when you meet somebody or see somebody who you think was part of it, oh, how was it?
Yeah.
What was it like for you? It must have been nice, huh? Did you get a lot of girls? You know what I mean? That's what this Ryan kid's looking at him like he's the genie that came from
Totally.
the bottle.
Well, and it's not a passive way of asking those questions. He's not happy about that.
Right.
Ryan.
Right.
There's a lot of jealousy and insecurity and all kinds of things that are loaded up in those questions.
Absolutely.
Oof. Yeah.
Again, society has created this hierarchy of value where the cool and popular kids are reaping all the benefits and everyone else is fighting for the scraps.
Mm-hmm.
The same is true for adults, isn't it? It's not just a kid problem. I mean, if you're popular as an adult, what are you? Famous. You're a celebrity. You amass wealth and affords you the comfort of maybe an easier life. Maybe you don't have to
More
deal
comfortable
with
life.
you-
Yeah.
more comfortable. You don't have to deal with what some other people have to deal with.
Yeah.
Let's say
Yeah.
not always.
Yeah.
but most of the time, it's pretty privilege,
Yeah.
right? If you're attractive in today's society, let's be frank here.
It helps.
As has been the case for decades, centuries maybe.
Probably centuries.
Doors more easily open. Doors have been WD-40'd a little bit. It's a little bit of a swing there. You don't have to
Right.
run into it as hard. So that's still going on now, and that's a societal problem. That's not an individual issue. That's not a state by state issue. That is as a society as a whole. We value being attracted. We value having money. We value having it all together. And so when you don't have that, it makes you feel not great.
Yeah. What do I say? I mean, yes, I understand what you're saying, and yes, there's a lot in that that's accurate. I think this is where you could say a lack of a foundation for a young person really shows up if they don't have that inherent sense of self-esteem or self-worth or value, and the lines of communication aren't open enough with the parents or with whatever parental forces are around, then a particular perception can go down a rabbit hole or in a particular direction that is incredibly destructive.
Yeah.
And if the young person doesn't have, just the foundation of feeling loved and supported and valued, they don't have the tools to stand up to this kind of stuff.
That's a good way to put it.
And if they don't voice their confusion to someone who might have a bigger perspective, and they're just kind of, going down their own rat holes in their own minds by themselves or online.
Yeah.
You can see where, granted, this whole series is about a very extreme event, but you can see where they show so beautifully how you could get there,
how the
and
snowball
how it
could roll that far,
and so silently.
Yeah.
At least to the adults.
Yeah, it was a shock.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
an absolute shock.
Yeah,
and but like to your point in what you're saying, which I love what you said there. This show does such a good job of giving us a intimate look into how that might have occurred.
Yeah.
What might have taken place, because not everyone's going to fall victim to that, right? Not everyone's going to kind of find themselves in this situation and is going to make the decisions that Jamie did.
That's right.
Because if you do come from a family that has a strong foundation and communication and you're talking about these things,
yep,
maybe that doesn't occur.
For sure. And this is where one of the scenes that really, each episode is a scene, if you will. But something that I thought, it really got my attention. This was very early on. And that's when Jamie's at the police department being processed. And they ask who he wants to be his guardian adult going through this particular process. And he chooses his father. And the two of them at one point are sitting alone. And I thought, he's not giving his kid a hug or like putting his arm around him. And then there's mention later on that we're not that way.
Right. And I had the same thought as you when I was watching it. And I thought it was just me. I had the same thought. I'm like, man, his dad's kind of like cold. He's not really, but oftentimes, and we can speak to this because we're men, that's kind of how it is. Like, there's not a whole lot of, I don't want to say all the time, but there's less affection between men because, I don't know, toxic masculinity.
There can be, but it can be cultural. Because like this was England, where like my dad grew up Italian. Italians are very all over each other.
Okay.
They'll hug each other. And
sure.
That's not I'm not saying all over each other like in a sexual way, but I'm just saying they're more demonstrative.
Yeah.
If you will. Like my mom was born in the States, but of Irish heritage. And they were very, my mom not until she got older, she wasn't a big hugger. It's like, wasn't really into that contact kind of thing.
Got it. So you think it's cultural.
And my dad was a big hugger.
Interesting. Okay.
And so when I saw that scene, I thought it's particular to that family, but it's also part of the English culture. They're just not as that way. At least that was my experience.
Sure.
When I was there, when I lived there.
That makes sense. That gives some light to it. So I'm glad you shared that.
And at the same time, that father was very loving.
Of course, yeah, just in different ways than what we're used to or what we expect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was really beautiful not beautiful. I thought that was very indicative. And I thought that was important to show that there is because look at the impact it had on both of us. We're looking at it thinking, how come he doesn't
give him a hug, man? He needs you. Yeah. That's what I kept. I was like, wanted to jump out of my seat, like, please.
That's part of
comfort your son. He's scared.
Part of the countless ways that this series really just hits at the heart.
Oh yeah, digs into you.
Oh my God,
100%. Oof. Well, we're gonna talk about more, but first, we gotta do a bad guy break.
Let's do it.
So as always, 4 hints to guess this popular fictional antagonist who commits heinous crimes and tries to justify their action.
Oh,
Little hint there for you. It'll help,
All right.
help you out there.
okay.
So the year that this TV series debuted was 2018.
Okay.
The genre, dark romance psychological thriller. The setting, modern day New York, LA, and London.
Oh, I know it.
And the actor is
Yeah,
Penn
Penn
Badgley.
Badgley. He's awesome in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Joe Goldberg from the Netflix series You.
Yeah.
Joe is, let's be honest here, handsome, charming,
Yeah,
yet
he
very
is.
intense and obsessive young man who goes to extreme lengths to involve himself with people that he desires. If you've seen the show, you know how extreme I'm talking.
Oh, boy.
It gets extreme.
It's hard to watch at times, at least for me.
For sure.
I had to sometimes like stop and like walk away for a little while and
Yeah.
like, oh man.
I read something when I was coming up with this that he had reservations for playing the character
Understandably.
because he was like, I don't want people thinking that this is like he's a good guy,
Right.
You know, like that
Yeah.
that's romantic and he's
Yeah.
And they were like, that's exactly why you're the guy to play it because
Right.
you'll do it justice. This is a bad guy.
And that's why the actor who played Owen, can't think of it, who played Jamie in this,
Oh,
is
yeah.
perfect for this.
Yeah.
Because he looks like such a sweet kid.
Yeah, the look, he's so innocent.
Because this isn't, as we've probably seen in that Netflix short that you and I both watched. It's not a whodunit. It's a whodunit.
Right, exactly.
And
100%.
and that was part of why they chose him for this, just because of the same thing as Penn Badgley.
And they did a great job. Great
Absolutely,
casting.
great casting.
So let's talk about Jamie's parents, shall we?
Okay.
Let's talk about
do it.
their role in Jamie's crime. So in our final episode, we stay with the family and we get to see an intimate view of how the father acts when things go sour. We know from episode 3 with the psychologist that Jamie said that his father can get angry and sometimes even lose control of that anger. He referenced, I think, breaking the shed in the backyard.
Yeah, he
pulling it
doesn't
down.
hit Jamie,
Right.
but he does lose his shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the father is trying to live a normal life in this final episode, but he's being pressed by the acts of teenagers and such. Those teenagers, man, they can be such a darned. So we can see we're there next to him with the family as we experience. He's got a little bit of a temper. I don't think it's a stretch to say that, and he can fly off the handle a little bit. At
Oh,
times,
yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah.
When we're thinking about this from the perspective of a young boy, you're very impressionable, especially when it comes to the male figure in your
Sure.
life, your
Absolutely.
father, your grandfather, whoever it is that's
Yeah.
that's there, that's taking care of you, your uncle, I don't know, but that person is an example for you to see how to conduct yourself in life, and so when you see how they treat others, how they treat women, how they behave when things get tough, how when they're angry, what they do with that anger, that's all going to imprint onto
for
you,
sure.
and you're going to absorb it, and you're going
That's
to go,
right.
well, maybe this is how I handle anger. When I get angry, I lash out and I, freak out a little bit, but it's okay. I come back, and then I'm good again. I'm dad again, right? That's how things happen. And look, I'm not placing full responsibility and blame onto Eddie here,
Right. Right.
the father played by Stephen Graham. But I am saying that he contributed in part to Jamie being the person he was. When Eddie and his wife, played by Christine Tremarco, are in the bedroom in that final episode, they're trying to uncover how they got here. How did this happen? You know, they say, like, how did we make Jamie when we made our daughter? Like, she's so, what happened? And I loved this part. Eddie says that his father beat him with a belt when he was a kid. And he's like, I've never laid a hand on my kids. To break this habit and to not do the same to your own kids is absolutely amazing and should be
Yeah.
applauded. That is massive.
Break the pattern. Yeah.
Massive to break that pattern.
Yeah.
However, Eddie was still imprinted on
Yeah.
from his father.
That's right.
And so he still carried some of that anger, some of that ability to lose control or to lash out at times.
Well, and you could say he almost saw that as acceptable.
Correct. He's there's an excuse for it. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not as bad as my dad was. And I hear
Right.
that a lot. I hear that a lot in life from people that I meet, friends of mine, people who I'm close to, that I'm not as bad as my parents were. And so that I must be doing, I'm good then. I'm doing a good thing. When you very well might be. Like
True.
we say,
You might. Yeah.
by Eddie breaking that cycle, not beating his kids.
There's goodness in
massive,
that. Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah, for sure.
But he still has that rage there, and he still gets out of control. And even though he's not taking it out on the children are still watching him do it. And so fast forward to, or in this case, we're going backwards to episode 3, when Jamie's with the psychologist. We see how capable he flips his lid a couple of times. We see the rage.
Yep.
It's there at 13.
Yep.
It's in him. And
Yep.
that's how he handles his anger. When he gets angry, he lashes out. And then he has to come back, right? He has to go, oh, sorry I yelled there. Sorry I raised my voice.
Mm-hmm.
The damage is already done.
It is.
It's already been done. You can
Yeah.
apologize, but
Yeah.
you've already acted.
Yep.
And so,
And then comes the regret. And
correct, exactly. The cycle somewhat continues.
Yeah.
Hopefully it would get better, but this provides an example of Jamie to what to do. His wife, Manda, says to Eddie, I think we have to accept that we could have done things a little differently. I love that line where she just gets real.
Yeah.
She gets honest, she gets vulnerable, and she says, listen, we probably need to accept the fact that we could have done things differently. We have to accept that. We're going to tear ourselves apart trying to decipher and
That's right.
dissect what's different or what we could have changed. We need to accept the fact that, yeah, we probably could have gone about this differently.
Yeah, you and I can't speak from experience on this one, but it's clear that parenting is probably the most difficult job on the planet,
Oh, God.
and everyone blows it to a degree.
Sure, yeah,
And
nobody's perfect.
you just hope that you blow it within a certain range.
Yeah, you didn't
that
blow
your
it
kid
too
doesn't
much.
grow up to be a murderer.
Yeah, it doesn't become Jamie, yeah.
Doesn't serve time, it doesn't do things that are horrible to other people.
Yeah.
And for two people like these parents who feel like things are okay, things are pretty good.
Yeah.
Dad's got his business. He's they're living well.
The dynamic of the family seemed okay. Like,
Yeah.
they all got along and they laughed
Did
together.
you see Jamie's bedroom? It was a good boy's bedroom.
Yeah, they had fun. They provided him with what he wanted. Hey, he wants a computer. We got him a computer.
And then once, when they were in episode 1, when they're at the police station and Dad gets to see on the laptop what his son did, and the gravity of that hitting, I mean, I just can't imagine.
Oh my gosh.
Can't imagine how that would feel, and how difficult that's going to be for the parents and for the mom to say something like she did, that you just, that we could have done things differently. We have to learn to accept that. I don't know how they will do that.
Sure.
Yes. I mean, it's like somebody has said to me, you never get over the death of someone that you loved. You just learn how to deal with it.
Sure, time
And
just goes.
I guess that's what this is.
Yeah,
It's
you'll never get over it.
We're just going to have to, we'll never get over it. We just have to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to talk about our last and final.
Okay.
I saved the best for last. Save Jamie
Right
for
on.
last. But let's learn a little interesting fact here. So Stephen Graham, the actor who plays Jamie's dad in this series, also co-created and co-wrote the series with Jack Thorne. And in an interview, he said that the idea of the series came, unfortunately, from seeing stories like the one in the show, a young girl murdered by a young boy, on the news. One week he reads an article. Next week it's on it's on TV, a totally separate incident from a different part of the country.
Oh, wow.
And he said he started to wonder, how did we get here? How did we as a society end up at this point where young boys are stabbing young girls? Like it defies sort of what makes sense
Yeah,
to
for
us.
sure it does.
And this inspired him to create and write the show. And I quote, "I wanted to bring this into the consciousness and hold a mirror up to society and ask, what's going on with us? Why is this happening?" And I think that's so unique, and I think that's why this show has taken off the way that it has. Absolutely, it's well done. Absolutely, it's well acted, well executed. The one takes, everything comes together to produce this wonderful piece of art. But it being born of that sentiment, with that idea in mind, I think is really what drives the whole piece. Without that, I don't think we have Adolescence. So shout out to him.
Oh, for sure.
He was phenomenal as the dad. Phenomenal
He's
writing.
Such a good actor. Yeah.
Everything about it just came together beautifully.
Yeah. Amazing.
So, last but certainly not least, let's talk about Jamie. We have to, right?
Yes, we do.
We have
My
to.
God.
We're going to talk about Adolescence. We got to talk about Jamie. I don't know if you caught this,
Okay.
but in the first episode, when they're doing his fingerprints, he gives a look that gives away that he did it even before we see on the laptop. It's just a split second, but it tells you everything you need to know. If you've seen the show and you know what I'm talking about, go back to episode 1. Go to when he's doing the fingerprints. You'll see it. He gives. It's a split second. A look of. It's cold. It's a look of someone who knows what they did.
Yeah.
And that's good acting.
It's great acting.
Acting, so much we talk about, it's in the eyes. You can say so much from just your eyes. And he told me everything I needed to know right there. I remember thinking, like, maybe I have to go back and pause that. Did I see that right? And sure enough, I went back and paused it. And I was like, shit, it is right there. I see it. I see someone who knows what they've done, who has a cold look. And it's just a glimpse. And it's brilliant. So that kid's got a bright future.
Oh,
I'll tell
boy,
you.
does he. My God, he's a phenom.
I'll tell you. So all throughout the series, we get glimpses of Jamie's true character when he isn't playing a role for the adults, when he's not playing the poor me. I didn't do it. I would never do that. So and so. So far, you get the point. But boy, does he have a dark side to him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
By the end of the third episode, I think most of us completely believe that this person was capable of murdering someone. At least I did. I can speak for myself. By the end of that third episode with the psychologist, I went, oh yeah, definitely that kid could murder somebody. For sure.
Well, and she saw that too.
Oh, she did. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about her too.
Okay.
So we watch as Jamie interacts with the psychologist in the third episode, played by Bryony Aniston, someone he likes and admires. He craves her liking him. It means so much to him. He cries out to her at certain times, "Don't you like me?" We know based on what we've learned thus far that popularity and being liked are important to young boys like Jamie and his friends. He also loses his temper, lashes out on her a couple of times,
Slaps the coffee off the table.
gets in her face. Look at me.
Oh, yeah. He really got in her face.
Which shows us
Oof.
how his father might have influenced his behavior, right? All the pieces are coming together in this third episode. He also admits to her that he thinks he's ugly, which gives fuel to his low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And then finally, did you catch this? I love this. The sandwich was such an important part of this scene.
And she almost, I'll let you say it first.
So the psychologist offers him a sandwich when she comes in, kind of like a nice gesture. We see a little bit of their rapport. It's not the first time she's seen him. And it's like, oh, these two get along.
And she's trying to like him. I mean, she does seem like she does like him.
And she wants to believe that he's not
Yes.
capable of this.
Correct.
She wants to acquit him. She wants him to not have done this.
That's right.
That's what she's trying to get to. Like, please let this kid not have committed this heinous crime. So she offers him the sandwich, and he's excited until he learns that it has pickles on it. And he's really grossed out and not really into it. And then halfway through the episode, he opens it up and he takes a bite anyway. Jamie said that he wasn't attracted to Katie, and yet he still asked her out. He still pursued her. He said he wanted to do a lot of things to her, but he didn't. And that's why the psychologist recoils at the end when she touches the sandwich. She so wanted him to be this innocent young kid that he looks like. As we talked about, he looks like he's this innocent young kid who's not capable of something like this. But after the past hour they've spent together, she finally puts the pieces together, sees the real him. All the puzzle pieces are in place, and she knows that he's guilty.
Yep.
And that the sandwich is a representation of just that. So Jamie himself, whether influenced or not, whether by nature or nurture, is completely capable of committing the crime he is accused of.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, no kidding. That episode with the psychologist, they're all remarkable. By the way, that was shot first. That episode was shot first.
I heard that. Yeah, that was the first one that they did.
He was like, I think I've said this to you during our coffee. To me, he maybe not, but he was like emotional Quicksilver. And he could look menacing and angry and then go to a bewildered 13-year-old boy in a flash.
It was scary.
It was scary.
Yeah.
The thing he said about asking Katie out, even though he wasn't attracted to her, he purposely asked her out because she had been rejected by someone else. And he figured that's easy target because she's feeling badly about herself.
So maybe she'll feel bad enough to...
Yeah, and so maybe he would be acceptable to her because she's maybe, been compromised a little bit. It's like, that thinking behind it. And you could see also the therapist, like, when she's,
Yeah, she's like, ooh. And he even goes on to say that she still rejected me. She said, oh, I'm not that desperate.
Right, which set him off.
Which was the last straw. And then in the video we see she shoves him to the ground.
That's right.
Now you're being overpowered by a woman.
Yeah.
He gets up, loses all control, as we've seen him do in this episode.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, there's a girl that's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect storm.
Yeah.
What did you make of him at the end changing his plea to guilty?
I thought good for you.
Like he is taking responsibility,
Yeah.
accountability for what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. Why go through all this rubbish of not guilty when you absolutely did it?
Man,
and he knows it.
The way that Stephen played that, the way that was written,
incredible.
Because he's talking to, he then goes and talks to the Jamie talks to his sister and mom, and then he's like, Dad?
Yeah.
Because the dad's like beside himself.
Yeah.
He can't even speak.
There's so many aspects of this that were that in the car, what you're talking about, the cell phone, I mean, the call, and Jamie thought he was just talking to his dad.
I know. He's like, everyone's there.
And then mom and sister chime in. But yeah, the dad was so devastated because it showed that there was still a part of him that was holding on to, there's no way my son could have done this, even though I saw the video, I saw the tape of him do it, I watched him do that crime. That's what I just thought. And the mom,
heartbreaking.
Said she never saw that.
Right, he's the only one.
But that was his last little bit of hope for his son, I guess. And reality was squashing that.
Yep.
So I thought, good for Jamie.
Good for him to come to terms and admit what he did and take responsibility and accountability at 13.
Yeah. Oof.
Hard to do.
Yeah.
Hard to do. So if you want to watch movies that explore shows that explore the theme of crime and who's responsible, here's 5 you can stream right now.
Okay.
The first, for an intimate view of a jury that deliberates the fate of an accused teenager, check out the 1957 film 12 Angry Men, now streaming on Tubi. For a dramatized look into the impact wrongful conviction has, check out the 2016 miniseries The Night Of. That show.
I don't know it.
Riz Ahmed. Oh my God.
Okay.
So phenomenal.
Okay.
You can watch that on HBO Max. For an exploration of how trauma and community contribute to crime, check out the 2003 film and our episode on it, Mystic River, now streaming on Amazon.
So good.
For a riveting true story about false accusations and racism in the justice system, check out the 2019 miniseries When They See Us, now streaming on Netflix. And for a detailed look into the role we play in crime when we ignore things about the people we love, check out the 2020 miniseries The Undoing, now streaming on HBO Max.
Okay.
So what did we learn from watching Adolescence, Joe?
Bring it home, Ryan.
That killing another human is not as much of a crime as putting pickles on a cheese sandwich. Kidding, obviously.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Most definitely.
But what we really learned is that when crimes take place, especially those committed by children, there isn't one singular party that assumes all responsibility. In fact, there's often a perfect storm of circumstances that led to a crime taking place, and several parties find themselves contributing factors to it. As the old adage goes, it takes a village to raise a child. We must be more observant, more patient, and more compassionate with our fellow humans so that young girls like Katie get the opportunity to live like the rest of us.
A long, full life. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and remember, as always, you're the main character in your own life. So don't be afraid to take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture, because sometimes the answers that you've been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time. Peace.